Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. You are listening, or rather watching, the Reds Report, not from the Vibe Studio, rather from my office and Carlo's bedroom. Carlo van der Water.
No, you're in the kitchen, mate. You've been promoted.
Is it the kitchen? Goodness
my wife
me,
says, yeah, she says, if I spend time with you after 8 o'clock, it has to be in the kitchen so you can see what we're up to. So I'm in the kitchen.
Carlo, for a change, you're not the only foreigner on our show today.
Yes.
we have former Barnsley FC player and New Zealand international. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Rory Fallon.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, buddy. How are you today? Looking well.
I'm good. I've been busy today, to be fair. Been training and all sorts. We've just had me and my wife have just had a baby, so just doing daddy daycare stuff, and yeah, the list goes on.
So you're busier than Carlo at the minute. Carlo, something that's busier than you.
I want to say I'm busy. Rory's just busier.
Yeah. Baby busy. Pretty much.
So Rory,
not like work busy.
Yeah. Obviously, you're very busy at the minute, and we'll get to that. We'll get to what you're doing now. But what we do on the Reds Report is like to do things in order and try and keep it as straightforward as possible, which sometimes it goes off rails, as you've probably witnessed from watching numerous episodes. Yeah. Anything can happen. We'll start beginning. Were you always a footballer, or was it another sport?
So I'll go right back, and my dad was a football coach. So my dad, well, funny enough, when I was listening to Colin's last interview, it brought back so many memories. So my dad was a football coach. He was born in Rotherham. So he went from Rotherham, and he got a postcard, and someone sent him a postcard of this beautiful beach. And it was Gisborne City, which was the place he went to. That was the club he went to in New Zealand, and that was where I was born. So he got his postcard through the mail saying, come, surf, sand, beaches and football. And he was like, yeah, I fancy that, because he was working on the roads. My dad, he was bouncing in between playing football. And he's got some story. He's got some unbelievable stories of bouncing.
We'll get him on here at some point. Do you think that'll be?
Yeah,
he'll
be a good one, because he could go right back. And obviously, he took Colin there and pretty much helped Colin out. And when Colin went back to England, he was super fit. That was one thing my dad was quite tough on, was fitness and strength and that. So he went back absolute machine. And I remember Colin when I was a little boy, just banging in goals for fun. So he was like one of my first heroes when I was a kid. So like, because when you're brought up in New Zealand, there's not many, England's so far away. Obviously, you when I was growing up, it was Liverpool who was dominant at that time. So you had all Ian Rush and John Barnes and all these people. But the local heroes were my heroes, because those were the guys I was seeing, week in, week out. Yeah. So it stems from there. My dad obviously took the New Zealand team to the first ever World Cup in 1982. I was born in 1982, so I was a World Cup. I was a World Cup baby.
Yeah.
Good year for your dad then.
Yeah, so it actually changed my dad's life, really. It turns our family, turns his life around, and he's been coaching for over 50 years now. He's still coaching.
Wow.
He said he's been trying to retire for the last 10 years, and every time I go back, he's like, "I'm going to retire this year," and it's like, "Nah."
But that's brilliant, isn't it? That's just the love of the game he has. I mean, obviously, me and Carl interviewed Colin Walker, as you said before. He's exact same, isn't he? Absolute oozes football out of every pore of his body, and you can just see that. You can just see the hunger still and the desire.
Yeah, just football men. When it's part of your being, it's like me. I tried to get away from football. I tried to run as far as I could. As soon as I retired, I was like, "Matt, I'm done." And then 2 years after, I was like, "You know what? I'm missing it."
Yes, yeah.
And that's when the coaching started kicking in, But it's I just wanted to get away from it because it was just I had 18 years of being a pro, and it got tough near the end.
So you were born over there then? At what point did you end up over here?
Yeah, so my dad's English, my mum's part Māori, and which is a native of the land. Obviously, if you don't know what that is, it's when the Maori, when the All Blacks do the haka.
Yeah,
that's one of our traditional dances. So my mum's Māori, my dad's obviously Yorkshireman. So I'm a Yorkshire Maori.
There's not many of them, is there?
They're rare, yeah.
Rare breed.
So growing up then in New Zealand, and this is not out of ignorance. If somebody says to me, sport in New Zealand, rugby is sort of top of that tree, isn't it?
Number one.
You mentioned your dad took New Zealand to the World Cup. Where is that now over time? From you being a pro or a young boy to now, how has that sort of football development gone in New Zealand? Is it on the up? Is it?
Well, in '82, football took over because it was unheard of. I think that New Zealand 1982 team that went to Spain, they went on the longest route to the World Cup. So it was a massive record, and it was a big deal back then. And around that time, football was on top. And then 30 years later, I ended up going to a World Cup and taking, New Zealand to South Africa.
Yeah, and your goal. It was your goal that took them through, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my goal. So New Zealanders had been waiting for years. So 30 years we've been waiting, and then obviously we were 90 minutes away from a World Cup final. So you could obviously imagine the pressure on us to win and to win on our home soil because we had to win.
Am I right in thinking it was the second leg against
Bahrain?
Was it 0-0 after the first leg? Is it?
Yeah, so we went to Bahrain, and it was a miracle that we got a draw 0-0. And then when we went back to New Zealand, because all they needed to do, if they got 1-1, they would have won. They would have went through on away goals. So we had to win.
And big goal Rory popped up and did the business.
Yeah. Pretty much, and that's the rest is history, And then, around that time, so between those years, it was just barren. It was, people, still support football, but a lot of New Zealanders support English football.
Right.
They don't really support the local. They'll still go there, but it's everyone has an English team. So for me, all I wanted to do was play in England.
Well, all Wales, Rory. We'll get to that later.
All Scotland.
All Scotland. We were talking about that around the dinner table earlier, having lunch, and we're talking about like the leagues in New Zealand and whether it's professional or semi-professional.
No, it's amateur.
It's amateur, right?
Yes, there's one professional team, and that's the Wellington Phoenix, and they play in the Australian League. That's it.
Wow. So for you guys to get to World Cup is an absolute massive story.
Well, my dad's team, they're all amateurs. There were a lot of Englishmen, amateurs. They've been, some of them were pros in England and came to New Zealand. But when we got to the 2010 World Cup, things had changed where that starting 11 were all pros. So things have changed now where they would, in that World Cup team, there was a guy who had to ask his bank manager to get time off. So he was working in a bank. There was a couple other guys working normal jobs. So they were the lads in the squads, but our actual starting 11 and probably 12, we were all pros. But now you fast forward to 2020, every single squad member now is a pro and in big leagues. So we've got
Just
one
talk
lad
about
in...
that. Go on. No, you're all right.
Yeah,
go on.
go
Carry
on.
on.
No. Yeah, go on.
I'm just saying, talk about that team that you qualified for the World Cup with them. What kind of players made that team up then? Because that's still a while ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's 2010. So that was, the biggest names at that time would have been Ryan Nelson, who played for Blackburn.
Yep.
At the time, he was probably the only Premier League player. I was playing in the Championship with Plymouth. You had Chris Killen, who was playing for Celtic at the time. And then you had a host of players playing in America, Australian leagues. Chris Wood, young Chris Wood on the bench.
Yes, I was just about to suggest Chris Wood, but I didn't want to sound daft. He was there, wasn't he? I mean, he's
this was
into a great player, hasn't he?
Yeah, at the actual World Cup, then you had Tommy Smith, who was playing at Ipswich. You had a young Winston Reid, who ended up going to West Ham.
West Ham.
But those guys, Tommy and Winston weren't involved in that Bahrain game.
Right.
So they came later on into the World Cup fold. So, we did have, we had some really good players.
It's that World Cup. Sorry, Carlo, go on.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, when you talk about New Zealand players, if you look at it from a Barnsley perspective, am I right in thinking that Leo Bertos, who...
We had 7, at one time with Colin, we had 7 New Zealanders. I think we had me, David Mulligan.
Yeah.
So the first 2 years was my dad sent, because Cole, obviously the connection was Cole.
Yeah.
And Cole knew we were coming.
It's all right. He's just putting the pictures.
What's going on?
Look.
You're still here.
Is that photo?
So that was I was second year there. So there was a couple of first years. Anthony Kay there at the bottom.
Yeah.
He was obviously in that group. This was like the first and second years. I was second year. So at the bottom left, you got David Mulligan there, who ended up, being a good pro.
Yeah.
He played played in the first team for. Actually, he played under Steve Parkin. He played he played over 100 games, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. So, and then you had obviously Anthony Kay, who's a bit of a club legend there, isn't he? Would you say?
Yeah. Part of that promotion. Team, but we'll get to that one later, Rory. We promise.
Yeah. Obviously, at the bottom right, you got Barraclough.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he was an unbelievable player. He broke into the Barnsley first team, but his injuries pretty much finished his career really.
Okay.
But he was quality. I really believed if he stayed fit, he could have played in the Premier League because he was so quick.
Wow.
I remember one time when he was playing we were away at Wimbledon and he actually got the man of the match at Wimbledon. You don't hear of many players getting the away team gets man of the match. That's unheard of.
He said there were 7 New Zealand players within that setup. Then is that a year prior to that photograph? Then. So
then we all started coming after this year. So it was me and Mully first. So obviously you see me up the top. So it was me and Mully first, and then it was a guy called obviously Jeremy Christie, who Jeremy Christie came with Alan Pearce. They never broke into the first team, but they became pros and stuff like that. And then obviously you had Leo Bertos, who broke into the first team.
Yeah.
How many is that? 5. And then you had Darren Young, 6.
Right, and this is all the influence of Colin Walker and your father to a certain extent.
Yeah, so my dad sent over me, Mully, Jeremy, and Percy, and obviously Leo and Darren probably heard that there was a Kiwi contingent, and they just came there for trials, and they got selected. So my dad had nothing to do with Leo and Darren.
Got you. Just a few of your stats up here, Rory. I don't know. Obviously, you made 58 appearances for Barnsley, scoring 11 goals. Out of those 11 goals, any that stick out in your mind as being probably most important or your favourite to a certain extent?
Probably my debut goal, actually, because that was the one I was struggling. I made my first team appearance when I was 18 with Spackman, and then obviously he got the sack, and Steve Parkin came in, and I was struggling under him. For some reason he you know, he didn't. At the time, he didn't like me and sent me out to Ireland, and I was just in pretty much. I was in the, you know, in the middle of nowhere really with my football, and then I was in no man's land at the time, so I was just like, what's going on here? So, you know, I made my debut at 18. You know, I felt like, you know, this could be my opportunity now. And then I had to wait till 19, you know, late into my 19th year to break in. And obviously, Steve, at the time, we were losing a lot of the games. We were struggling, and, you know, the strikers weren't scoring goals. And I think he was like, you know, I'm going to have to chuck them in. And then I scored on that night. And then when I went, my pretty much my football career went from there.
Yeah, you won that first night.
Yeah, we won that game. I forgot who the team was though. It might have been Blackpool.
Yeah, Blackpool. It's on the screen. First goal, 17th of September 2002 against Blackpool, thanks to BFC's stats. So that's your favourite goal then, as it stands.
Yeah, that was. You know what? It was an absolute basic goal. I pretty much chested it. Someone crossed it in, and I just chested it in. But that goal was the one that gave me the confidence to kick on. And then I think the next week I scored again. And then it just went on from there. And there was, you know, and then obviously Steve got the sack. But my favourite time was when with Glenn Hodges and Colin when they were in charge. Like, that's where I felt I played my best football. I was getting 8s every week. And then I was playing so well, scoring goals. And then obviously I got a stress fracture. And that's what pretty much, that put me back, eh?
Yeah.
And then obviously I was absolutely devastated when Glenn Hodges didn't get the job, because for me, he was like, I would have ran through brick walls for that guy. He was unbelievable. And obviously Cole, who, you know, brought me into the fold, I just felt so comfortable with them guys, and all the lads loved them. And then obviously the club didn't keep them, and Thordarson came in, good John, and I was just like,
move on.
You know, it was just like, for me, it was over.
Yeah.
How you talked about obviously Cole, about Glenn throughout your career. Then any besides those two, any coaches with other teams that you've played for that have stood out that you say, or has there been something about each and every coach that have made you the professional that you ended up being?
I'd say my biggest influence was my dad, because obviously he taught me. But there were, you know, there's obviously the first few pro coaches. Colin Walker was the main one. Barry Wagstaff, do you remember him?
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, so he was my under-17s coach. So he was big for me. And Mark Smith, Smudge. Remember him? Smudger. So these guys were massive in my development.
And that's something we often forget, don't we? Because we see players coming through and you think, oh yeah, he did really well in the under-23s or under the 18s. But actually, these days, as you well know, which we'll go on to in a bit, you know, the academies now have development squads from under 10s, under 11s, under 12s, and they lay the foundation. I mean, who said it the other day? We had Jim O'Brien on, who's doing his coaching hours at Barnsley, and says, I'm working with sometimes under 12, sometimes under 14. So you're not just looking at football, you're shaping human beings. And that's as big a part of the game, isn't it?
100%. And especially at those ages, it's like, those are the massive learning years. Yeah. And I learned so much, especially around Colin. Obviously, you know, the lads used to always hammer me, used to call me Golden Bollocks. Cole did love me, though, to be fair. Like, he did love me, obviously, because my dad helped him. And, obviously, I was good enough to be called Golden Bollocks, because, like, I was playing well as well. Yeah. Breaking into the team at 18. It's very different. And that was in the championship as well. So it was, but those guys were massive in my, Eric Winstanley as well. Don't forget him.
Eric Winstanley gets mentioned in every conversation we ever have with any player to do with Barnsley.
But he was always in there, and he was always talking to us, and, he didn't coach me as much as those other guys, but for him to take time out and to speak to us, it was massive. But there were also pros who like really helped me as well. And who was Craig Hignett? Yeah, he was quality. He was like one of the best pros, to ever, back in the days where you had to clean boots, and we were pretty much cleaners. We were cleaning that. Oakwell was spotless.
Yeah.
And like you'll hear some of the stories from the lads. Everyone had their jobs. We had a top man, and he would look after all of us, making sure that we did our jobs. And that place was so clean. They didn't need cleaners.
It still happens now a bit, doesn't it? Because I know, was it earlier, either last season or the season before, I can't remember much about it, but I played really well, scored a couple of goals, and one of the, I think then on the 16th, but it's all down to those boots.
I think it's Aiden Marsh.
It was Aiden Marsh.
I think, yeah.
Who is now on the verge of sort of breaking in at a very young age again, isn't it?
Aiden, funny story about that. On the second time I came back to Barnsley, so not many people know, but I came back to Barnsley after Scotland.
Right.
So when I was playing in Scotland, I ended up going, because I bought a house here when I was a kid. So at 21, my dad was like, buy a house. As soon as you get a pro contract, buy a house. So I bought a house and I kept it. And then I came back and I was doing my badges and I was just waiting around. And I was living in Montbreton, and a guy called Graham, I spoke to a school nearby me, and I was like, is there any chance I can take the kids, because I need to do my hours for my coaching badges? Can I take the kids? I'll do it for free. I'll do it once a week, or whatever, however many times you want me to take it. And the funny thing was, Aiden was in that group.
Wow.
So I had him for about a year.
See, that's part of making of a superstar. Because Aiden Marsh is one of those, I suppose. He went on pre-season. He only left high school, I think, sort of like September last year. So he's learning his trade. And to be able to do that amongst all these professionals at a club like ours, I mean, that's huge, isn't it?
Do you know what? That little team I took was a brilliant little team. I loved every minute of it. Just, they love football as well. So they were so dedicated. There were two lads that I thought, wow, these two are going to be players. Aiden was one, and a little lad called Vusi. I didn't know what happened to him, but those two lads were, and I was like, Aiden is going to go all the way. I knew it.
Brilliant.
He will.
Brilliant. And obviously, we'll get to your current career now, and obviously that'll tie in perfectly, won't it?
Well, the funny thing is that I've got in touch now with Aiden again. So just like, hey, how are you, mate? It's great to catch up with, because he was a little boy back then,
Yeah.
So
Well, I
had one year with him, and it was brilliant, mate, just to see him. But you could tell he was a player.
And obviously, like yourself and like me, he's a striker. Carlo was a defender.
I'll get me called.
He was a defender. I currently play for a team called the Cross Keys. Massive Rory. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Cross Keys, is at the pub, Cross Keys.
Yeah, Sunday league team. I'm slamming him in from everywhere, Rory. I just wondered if you got any tips for me to make me a better striker. I mean, obviously, sometimes confidence flows, it ebbs. I'm in and out of form. I just wondered if there's anything you could do for me, like just to make me a better player, really.
Just enjoy it, mate. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it, mate. Do you know what I mean? Go out there and have a smile on your face and enjoy football, mate. Don't put pressure on yourself.
And maybe start playing against people your own age. Because, I mean, the under-11s league is tough. It is. But I think you're at an unfair advantage, Chris.
Do you know what? You're braver than me, because I wouldn't dare play in those leagues.
It's a rough league. It's a rough league. It's funny. Yeah, it's funny because I wouldn't ask you to play for us next season, Rory. Actually,
Do you know, I've had many offers to come back to play football. I was like, nah. Once you finish, and that's it.
So before we leave Oakwell then and move on to other parts of your career, in terms of golden bollocks, as you called yourself, did you ever end up in trouble? Were you ever not so golden?
Oh, man, all the time. It was, do you know what? I've been speaking to Mully, and I know a lot of people know some stories and stuff like that. I don't want to go too much into it because I don't want to celebrate it. But the culture of that football club at the time, there was a massive drinking culture. Like that whole time around probably 99, 98, 99, 2000, there was a drinking culture there, and it was pretty much one of them things where it's like you do get entangled into it, and it's one of them things where you're cleaning someone's boots and they're like, oh, come out with us, lads. You know what I mean? It's one of them things you want to be part of the team.
Of course, you want to be upset.
So it's like,
to a certain.
Do you know, there was some Christmas dues. Wow, there were some things I just can't even explain what happened. it's too much to even talk about. It's
You think
just
we
like,
should go
wow.
into it without giving any names away? Is there anything you
No,
can
I
give?
can't, mate. But it's just like the things that went off at that football club around that time. I was just like, it was mind blowing.
Well, on
Because
the
I was
team
just like,
photo, sorry.
What's happening there? Like, what was going on?
On the team photo, we saw John Parkin, so I'm pretty sure somehow he will have been involved.
Oh,
If there was
he was always in the mix.
we do plan on
Always in the
getting
mix.
we plan on getting you and John on at some point together, Rory.
Yeah, to be fair though,
nice.
you know, when we were young, we were in competition. Like, there's no doubt about it. Me and him, we didn't pretty much. We tried to get on, but we were in full on competition mode, and it was like there's only going to be one place for us, so we were constantly scrapping with each other. Not fighting, but we were in competition. But the great thing about Johnny was unbelievable at centre back. I still believe that if he stayed, because obviously he was the worst at running. He was horrific. but if he was fit and he went at centre back, he would have played in the Premier League. He would have been a long-term Premier League player. Easy.
Really?
Easy.
Really?
He was unbelievable at centre back. But obviously he wanted to be up front and score the goals and get all the glory, wasn't it? But there were times where we would play up front together in the 17s and the 19s. We would destroy people. We would destroy them. Cole was talking the other day. We lost. This is a funny story. We lost to Nottingham Forest. That's that team that you just saw there. We lost to Nottingham Forest like 7-0. Right. And he ripped into us, man. And he was like, on Monday morning, I'm gonna run you into the ground. And he's like, you'll never forget this day. And then so in the morning we did what was it? 600 meters, then 400 meters, 600 meters, then 300 meters, 600 meters, then 200 meters, and then 600 meters and 100 meters. That's the first morning. The lads were dead. And so, because he made this track around the pitches. So we were just like, we were dead. And in the afternoon, we thought, he'll get the balls out. In the afternoon, he took us down to the lakes. We did 2 12-minute runs at the lakes. And if you've heard any stories about the lakes, they're legendary.
Right.
It was some of the hardest pre-season running I've ever done in my whole career. Wow. But he gave us that running in the morning and then 2 12-minute runs. And you know the 12-minute runs, they're 15-minute runs. They're not 12 minutes. You've got to run them in 12.
How did John deal with that running?
He got lapped about 6 times in the first morning, and I think by the afternoon he was gone.
We'll ask him about it next time we see him.
he was just like on a walk. But the fit ones were just bombing. It was. I've never felt so sick in my life. And then on the Tuesday we couldn't walk.
You talk with great passion about your time at Barnsley, but obviously the time came and you moved on.
Yeah.
And can you get the next photo already, please, Chris? Just so.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, just let me know when.
Yeah, just put it up.
You know what? The Barnsley stuff though, I could talk all day about because there's so many stories. Another great lad as well, a pro, was Sean McClare. Great guy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For some of you that don't know, he was one of the guys that probably he was the one that looked after me. He was top man.
So you mentioned good John Parkin coming in and the writing being on the wall and things, and it come to your time to leave Barnsley, which is what Carlo were mentioning. How did that feel leaving Barnsley? Gutting? Were you ready for a new adventure, new challenge, or? Yeah,
well, I'd been there for 5 years, and I felt, if they kept that youth team and they kept Hodge, I would have 100% stayed. I really felt that team would have just kicked on, but I felt like they pretty much got rid of Johnny. They put Johnny on a free. Like, how was Johnny Parkin on a free?
I know.
That is,
It's beyond belief, man. Most of those lads played first team. You had Ricky Ravenhill who went on a free. He went, he was a long-term pro.
Yeah.
Brian O'Callaghan, he went on a free. Mully went on a free to Doncaster. I was probably the only one that got sold.
So it come to your time to leave. You played for.
Yeah, it was time for me to go. I was hating it at that time because everything was changing, and I had my heart set on Glenn Hodges taking that team, and then I just didn't like Good John. You know, everyone will have different stories. You know, I don't want to hammer managers because, you know, I would dislike one and someone else would love him. So I don't want to be biased in that way. But for me personally, I just hated being around the guy. So it was pretty much like, it's time to leave. And he said, look, I'm going to sell you. And he said, Swindon have come in for you and you're going to go. I was like, okay. At that time, I didn't know that at the time we were in administration as well. So we had all that administration, if people can remember that as well. So, you know, Mully had a 3-year contract waiting for him, and they just, you know, they didn't give it to him because obviously they were in administration. They could just get rid of players willy-nilly. So he ended up just walking.
The money for your style obviously would have helped him immaculately. So you've got to play
but
for...
I only think it was about 60 grand.
Right.
So it was peanuts. I reckon, you know, it was bad business because I think a few years back when I was playing at the time I was playing for England, I think they could have sold me for a lot more money. Yeah. I just felt there was a lot of bad man management around that time, you know, upstairs and around.
We've heard that quite a lot.
People. Yeah. There's some great people that worked at the club like Remo, and, you know, some unbelievable people. But there was some stuff that just, you know, that for some reason there was too many managers coming through Barnsley Football Club. I think I counted about maybe 9 managers in 5 years.
Yeah, and there was no consistency either. Different styles, different
it was
ethos,
just,
and it never.
And especially with that group of players, you know, you're missing Chris Barker from that picture. Chris Barker, Leo Burdos, and Neil Austin as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You got 12 out of all those, that whole team. 12 players, you know, played either in first team or played in the Championship, World Cup players, internationals. Do you know that team could have been unbelievable because we'd played from 17 years. We knew each other inside out.
Yeah. They probably just needed a bit more patience, and at that time,
we needed a manager that stayed there for longer. We needed a Glenn Hodges to stay there. That's what we needed.
Chris, just to let you know, there's 7.5 minutes left. So I just want to talk about obviously the present day, but I just want to show the photo, which I'm sure Rory will know which one
no
it is.
problem. So obviously you've moved on. You've been to numerous clubs, and eventually you did come back, as Carlo said, to haunt Barnsley. We're going to that one, Rory. Do you want to just fill us in what's happening there?
Well, do you know what?
Go on.
I think it was more. That day was a bittersweet day for me. Because obviously that Swansea team, if you remember, was unbelievable. We should have gone up. We should have gone up automatic on the team. And I think by the time you get to the playoffs, we were winning 2-1, and I think we let a really bad goal that went under the wall. As soon as Barnsley scored, as soon as Barnsley scored that second goal, I was like, it's over. Because I knew that Barnsley would. I knew the lads. They were lagging. They were just wanting to get to pens. And I knew if we got Swansea, I knew if we didn't score, we would lose the pens.
Right.
Sometimes in football you get a feeling. It's usually the team that's struggling near the end, hanging on. They're the ones that want the pens.
Yeah. I mean, that goal was unbelievable, Rory. It was. I mean, I think it's your second overhead kick. You scored one previously against Bristol City, I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, I scored one when I scored one for when I was at Swindon against Bristol City in the derby.
Yeah.
That one was a lot better, but this one at the stadium was massive. Yeah. But for me, I wasn't too hurt because I played really well. I played unbelievable. I scored the unbelievable goal. It was just, you know, and when it comes down to penalties, it's a lottery. And obviously, Kenny took me off as well, which I was probably more angry at him taking me off than us losing, because I would have took one of the pens.
Yeah, you made a 15-year-old me very upset, Roy, for that celebration, because I was a massive fan for you at Barnsley. I absolutely love watching you play, if I'm honest. And that one really upset me. That one, like, your celebration. I mean, it's haunted me for years. I just want to know what I'm thinking it was air guitar, wasn't it? You played air guitar. I'm just wondering what the.
Yeah, it was one of my celebrations of playing the air guitar.
Okay.
Pretty lame, like now when I think about it, but like it's just one of them things when you do as a kid, you know. But it was one of them. You know, when you score massive goals like that, you just do mad things. You know, it's just one of those euphoric moments.
Yeah.
But it was a great day. I still look back at that day and think that was a great game.
I hate to interrupt because we only got about 4.5 minutes left, but I have to ask you, Rory, tell us a little bit what you're doing now, because we're still involved in football, and if you can as well, if you want to be able to get rid of one thing in football, and we could put it in room 102, whether that be VAR, referees, nobody's mentioned agents yet, but that will come, agents, whatever. If there is something you could take away from football to make it a better game, what would it be? But first of all, just tell us what you're doing at the moment.
Well, so at the moment, obviously I had a 2-year break from football just to, you know, rekindle, you know, the hunger for it. And I went back into Plymouth. So I'm coaching now in the Plymouth Argyle Academy. So I'm pretty much putting back into, you know, all the people that have put into me. I felt like, you know, it's time for me to help the next generation. So I'm coaching the lads at Plymouth Argyle. I'm taking the 14s. And to be fair, the 14s I have are quality. Like this is like some batch of kids that I've got here now. Very similar to Aiden when I saw him when he was a kid. These kids are something else. So we've recently had a lot of lads. You know, obviously every year you get you're a dream destroyer now, aren't you? When you become a coach, you become a dream destroyer. Little Johnny now is not going to make it because of you. So it's one of them things, but you know, a lot of my team have gone up into the 15s, 16s now.
I have to say,
I'd say about most of the team.
I saw a post on your Facebook. I saw a post, I think, on your Facebook or on your page to say that they've all been retained despite the COVID and everything that they have to live through. And I think Barnsley have done the same. I think Bobby Hassel said all the players under 16 will be kept on because you can't send that letter or make that phone call in times that we live. And I'm really sorry, 2.5 minutes. To make football better, what would you take away from football? If me and Chris could click our fingers and make it go away, what would make football better?
I wouldn't say agents, but I'd say bad agents.
Yeah.
Bad agents.
And what does a bad agent look like, Rory?
A bad agent is someone that is in it for himself and will take a player out of a club and send him to no man's land for his own gain. Yeah,
a good sign-on fee and a large percentage of the sign-off fee. Yeah,
I think there was one case in the Sunderland documentary. Someone was talking about it. There's people like that. They're just absolute bloodsuckers, you know.
Yeah, it's not.
And another so much more we want to cover.
I know it's not right.
You know, we didn't even. I could have kept talking about Barnsley, you know.
We will do one day. We will do it. And I think the good thing is,
I'm also assistant coach of New Zealand as well. So I'm doing the academy.
I was just about to ask that. So which is unbelievable, really. What an high level to be coaching. You must be learning so much of so many people.
Chris, there's less than a minute. So if this gets cut off, huge thank you to Rory Fallon, but please keep talking.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We'll close up. Rory, would you come back for part 2 maybe in a week or so?
I'd love to, mate.
That'd be brilliant. There's a lot more. And me and Carl have a think about what we like to ask you about, what we've missed out. And we'll
send you a beforehand so you know.
Come so quickly, Rory, because you're such an interesting person. You've been around the block. You've been at Barnsley. You've been at New Zealand. You've lived such a storied career, and it still continues to today. I've finally forgiven you for scoring that goal against us.
Well, you won. Today, you won, so you've got to be happy with that.
We did. It was your celebration because I loved you so much at Barnsley, and it hurt a lot. But no, we've built that bridge, and it's brilliant for you to come on, mate. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, and stay safe, especially with your young family.
Yeah, thank you. You guys too.
All right.
I've been Chris Wood from England. He's been Carlo van der Watering from Holland. He's been Rory Fallon from New Zealand. This has been the Reds Report. Thank you very much. Good night. See you later. Thank you.